Corey. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. And yourself?
I am doing good. I feel like the webinar already started between us because we were chatting up a storm before this.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So I know we have a lot to talk about Walker Capital Partners, but before we get started with that, tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's start with you. Who is Corey Walker?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a New Englander by native New Englander. Grew up here in New England, and now I'm married. I got two little kids, live up here in New England. Oldest plays hockey, and been an active investor myself for the last 15 years. I had a wealth management practice that I managed a team of advisors for about 8 years, managing a little over $100 million in total assets. And ultimately, had just continued to refine an investment strategy that had worked really well for me personally, had worked well for a lot of our wealth management clients, and launched Walker Capital Partners and our first fund, our flagship fund with my partner John. And it's been going really well, and we're just really, really excited to be here today. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Walker Capital Partners. Tell us and our attendees today what really sets you guys apart from all the other hedge funds out there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that make us unique. Uh, of course, we have an extensive background and experience in wealth management and investing, and a lot of innovative strategies that we kind of integrate into one cohesive strategy. But we have a really strong focus on risk mitigation as well as capital appreciation. And over the last 15 years, developed something that we call the calling card strategy. And what this does is it really just integrates several equity and option strategies into one core cohesive strategy that allows us to achieve a really robust risk reward ratio, keep our risk in a defined way so everyone knows, hey, this is how much we could really lose. We're always capping our downside, and it allows us to deliver consistent results to our clients and investors that often end up being superior returns.
Amazing. Now, calling card strategy. I think that was one of the main points we wanted to talk about today. Could you just elaborate on that a little bit? And what are some benefits of this strategy to your investors?
Yeah, calling card strategy, like I said, is a proprietary approach that we've developed by my team and I, and it leverages a lot of option strategies such as things called calendar spreads and collars and protective hedging and more. And really, by integrating a lot of these elements into one cohesive core strategy, we're able to create a balanced and super flexible portfolio that allows us to adapt to all kinds of various market conditions, whether it's up, down, or sideways. This really allows us to effectively manage our risk and seek out higher potential returns. And for our investors and our partners alike, what this means is more stability and predictability in their investment experience, and with still leaving that potential for significant upside, even in volatile markets. We often call our calling card strategy the sleep well at night strategy because our investors never really have to worry that much.
Amazing. Now, do you see this strategy utilized by other hedge funds too in your industry?
No, so we've talked to several other, hedge fund managers with a lot of experience, mentors, if you will, people in the venture capital world as well, and there's no one really else that's doing this strategy like we do it. They might do pieces of our strategy, but integrating them into one strategy has, from what we found, been very unique to us.
Amazing. Now, you mentioned earlier that risk mitigation is one of your expertise at Walker Capital Partners.
Yeah.
How does your approach to risk mitigation enhance performance across different markets?
Yeah, so our strategies are designed to protect capital and reduce volatility. And this really ensures that we have that ability to perform well in up, down, and sideways markets. But by using stock options to hedge a lot of our positions and employing strategies like calendar spreads, we're able to limit and define our downside risk and capture that upside opportunity. It's a really disciplined approach because sometimes there's opportunities that present themselves that we're like, oh, this could be a great return or a great potential, but we have a very disciplined approach to our risk mitigation that allows us to deliver consistent performance. I mean, even just in this last month alone, we started to see a lot of the volatility starting to spike in the stock market. The last week has been terrible. Yesterday was the worst day in over 2 years, and our fund was up. It doesn't mean that we will always, be up when the market's down, but that this volatility reduction strategy is what allows us to have that longer term performance because we're capping that downside. We're protecting ourselves on the downside.
Now, this is definitely going a little off topic from what we had discussed. Just because of the recent events, yesterday definitely was the market was hit since I think 2022, I believe, one of the
Yeah.
lowest, the S&P 500, right? What what are your thoughts on that? The market conditions currently, like what should the investors expect? What's your outlook?
Yeah, our outlook is that, the current environment is going to continue to try and prop up the market as much as it can through the election cycle, right? But with proxy wars going on all over the world, we have real wars going on overseas. We've got double-digit real inflation. I feel like a lot of Americans and other, people in other countries as well are feeling the squeeze of inflation on their budget. I mean, CNBC just published, how much it costs to live a comfortable lifestyle for a family of four, and I think in every state but one, it was over $200,000 of income. And it's crazy how expensive, how much inflation's eating into that. Yet the stock market continues to roar forward. So our outlook is that, we believe that we'll still see some continued support, if not some acceleration through the election cycle. And then, after that, I think we'll start to see the market probably pull back a little bit. We're starting to see, a lot of these companies starting to face, margin compression and just due to inflation and their side of things, and people are spending less. Consumer discretionary spending is taking a hit. They're still spending on travel, but sometimes we're opting for the store brand version of the milk instead of the name brand, right? So I think that's gonna long term is going to just increase the volatility in the market, which will probably pull it down a little bit.
And I'm sure Walker Capital Partners is ready and expecting some of this volatility and how it will either positively or adversely affect your strategies.
Yeah, absolutely. Volatility is actually a good thing for our strategy, the way that we invest for our clients. It gives us an opportunity to get into stocks at a good discount.
Mhm.
And it also allows us to really kind of just prove ourselves as, the market's kind of fluctuating. A lot of people, especially sophisticated investors or investors who are, saving for their retirement, they're not looking for massive swings. When we're younger, yeah, we might be able to take a 20% hit one year, but you got 40 years ahead of you. But when you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond, having that level of volatility often just isn't worth it and is very scary.
Now, this strategy that you guys have created, perfected, which really benefits from volatility, what type of investors would benefit from this strategy?
Yeah, our strategy is particularly beneficial for investors that are seeking a balanced approach to both growth and risk management. And this includes self-directed IRA investors, high net worth individuals, and institutional investors alike that are looking for strategies that can perform well across all kinds of market conditions. Our focus on options and equities, combined with our proprietary strategies, makes our fund a suitable investment for those that want to have the potential to achieve superior returns without necessarily taking on excessive risk. We cater to investors who value consistency, transparency, and innovation in their investment portfolio.
Beautiful. Now, since we are also on the topic of market conditions and changes, how do you, as the CIO, Chief Investment Officer of Walker Capital Partners, ensure your investment strategies are always effective with the ever-changing market conditions? Because I feel like the last 4 years, ever since COVID, it's always been every year, every month, it's something is always happening, and we're never
Right.
sure about what's happening in the market, right?
Right. I mean, it's definitely not an easy task, right? So we really work to ensure the effectiveness of our strategy just by continually monitoring and adapting to different market conditions. Like I just mentioned earlier, with volatility over the last 2 weeks, this is yet another example of how our investors are sidestepping significant portions of the pullback while being able to take advantage of some discounts in this market. Our team regularly conducts thorough research and analysis to try and stay ahead of market trends and identify new opportunities as well. And we regularly review and adjust our strategies to try and stay in alignment with current economic indicators and market movements. It's really more of a proactive strategy more than anything else that allows us to maintain the robustness of our calling card strategy and deliver that consistent performance. And lastly, by being able to adapt and be more forward thinking, we really ensure that our investors have the ability to benefit from a resilient and effective investment strategy.
Beautiful. Now, previously, when I asked a little bit about your investor base, you mentioned you also cater to individuals trying to utilize retirement money,
Yeah.
specifically through self-directed IRAs.
Yeah.
How does your fund cater specifically to that clientele, someone, an individual who would like to use their retirement money and not let it just sit in the markets?
Yeah. So our fund is really well suited for self-directed IRA investors because of our focus on that risk mitigation and consistent performance. IRA investors can really benefit from our strategies to a lot of the tax benefits of their IRA. In a cash account that investor might have with us, they might experience short-term capital gains from some of our options side of our strategies. So in an IRA, it can shield them via deferral or tax-free growth, depending on the type of IRA they have. And self-directed IRA investors tend to be more sophisticated, seeking more stability, longer term growth. They understand that it's not just about top line performance, but risk adjusted performance more than anything. And our investment strategies are designed to meet these needs. We provide this level of security and the potential that aligns with the goals of a lot of self-directed IRA investors.
So I'm sure in your line of work, you deal with these self-directed IRA investors, and some of them in the beginning might not be aware on the questions they should ask, the hedge fund, the CIO. What are the common questions you get from self-directed IRA investors, and how do you really help them understand not just, what your hedge fund does, but also this calling card strategy and how it benefits them?
Yeah, it really depends on the sophistication of the investor that we're talking to. I think one thing that any investor with us, should always, or whether they invest with us or anyone, should really know is what's the communication style. So from us, they can always expect really clear, consistent, and transparent communication. We work on a regular basis, update our investors on fund performance, market outlook, and strategic adjustments that we make. And I think that some of the questions that we went over today, like what's your outlook for the future? How do you mitigate risk? Those are the type of questions that we get from most investors. So when we're talking to more sophisticated investors who might understand some of the option strategies that we implement, a lot of times they'll ask us, why we use, maybe a calendar spread versus a vertical or different terminology, things like that. But ultimately, I think what it really comes down to for us is how are we defining that downside and that upside? And that's what a lot of investors tend to care most about.
Beautiful. Now, calendar spread. I know this came up a few times during our conversation today. Would you share with our attendees today what is a calendar spread?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of ways to do it. The way that we often will utilize it is by buying a long dated put or call. So let's just say it's July right now. We might buy a November, December put that's above the strike, call it deep in the money. And from there, we will sell these short term puts against it to have the ability to either we're going to buy this stock if it doesn't come to the prices that we want, or we're going to let that expire worthless. We're going to collect that credit and then sell the next month's put contract or call contract against the long dated contract. This allows us to have a very, very defined downside and create regular cash flow for our fund on a regular monthly basis, or even sometimes a semi-monthly basis, depending on the liquidity of the options in that underlying security.
Amazing. Now, my next question really is, and you actually answered this a little bit about communication and reporting, how you are very transparent and communicate with your investors, not just about the strategy Walker Capital Partners uses, but also just updates.
Right.
Is there anything else you'd like to add on? Like if an investor, someone is interested in getting to know Walker Capital Partners, what can they expect from your services?
Yeah, so I have a partner, John Lilly. He's our director of all operations. So him and I are both always available to answer any type of questions an investor might have. Anything more on the administrative side, if you will. John is the go-to person. If they have questions about how do I add money, take away money, what should I be expecting, those type of things. And any type of strategy related questions, I'm always happy to jump on a call with investors or potential investors to answer their questions. And while we can't give specific investment advice to clients because we're not an investment advisor anymore, we can obviously talk about the long-term strategy of our fund.
Beautiful. Corey, I feel like you have definitely created something amazing with Walker Capital Partners. In your years at Walker Capital Partners, what is something that you and your partner are very proud of accomplishing?
Yeah, I think some of the biggest things that we're most proud of has actually happened over the last couple of weeks when we're seeing our strategy actually work. And it's something that we knew would happen, but seeing it happen in real life versus in a wargaming situation, if you will, rather than back testing strategy and seeing, yes, this strategy works, seeing it happen in real life where the market's melting down, volatility is skyrocketing. We got just news out of left field on the political side of things and all kinds of just craziness going around the world and the market's instability. And yet we have stayed extremely resilient. Like I mentioned, that we're up this month versus the general market. I don't minus maybe how it's doing today. But we're up on the month, and that just shows that our strategy is consistent, is resilient even through this volatile times.
Amazing. And what is in store for Walker Capital Partners? So what are your future plans right now?
Yeah, we have a lot of big plans for our firm. We hope to continue to add more funds as our firm grows, bring on more staff, be able to build out our operations side to really be able to enhance our relationship with our investors and our partners, and just with the community that we work in. We're up here in New Hampshire, and our goal is really to kind of expand that footprint as time goes on, but to not just make money for our partners and for ourselves, but really to how do we impact our community around us? And I think that is something that we're really excited and optimistic about in the future as well, is bringing better jobs and higher quality jobs to the area that we live in. Um, yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing for our future.
I definitely strongly believe that positive social impact, especially from businesses in the areas they're situated, located in, is very important. So it definitely looks like you guys have some big plans, and I'm excited to hear about it in the future. Now, before we pivot to see some of our questions, something that a lot of attendees have always asked me is when we have these experts in the field come into our webinars, they always like to know, how do you stay informed about the markets? How do you stay educated? How do you increase your awareness on what's happening in the economic, landscape?
Yeah, I've learned to love to read. That's a big one. I am someone that I don't like picking up a novel, but I can pick up a 10K and start reading it, and I enjoy it. That's just the way my mind works. No, put numbers in front of me, and I'm happy to sit down and parse through them. Obviously, we listen to the conference calls, or if we can't listen to it live, we'll listen to it, later, a recording of the conference calls of all the underlying, companies that we're invested in for sure, and a lot of the ones that we're interested in. Our broker is obviously, Bloomberg and stuff like that. They give us lots of research, but a lot of what it comes down to is we spend a lot of time diving into balance sheets, cash flow statements for businesses, and also we do look at, what's the is the company that we're investing in, what's their social impact down the road? Is this a company that we would align with? From our own personal, point of view, from an ethical standpoint or not. So that's definitely something that we also look at is what's their social involvement as well.
And as an investor, um, a lot of investors I feel like who are now getting into, investing into alternative investments beyond the market, they might, for especially younger generations, where would you point them? What direction? What books would you recommend them?
Yeah, there are a lot of really great books out there. If you want to call it nerd out, that's what I call it when I do it. There are several great books by Warren Buffett that you could look into. Jim Cramer has a couple of great books. Warren Graham has a couple of great books that you could look into. If you're looking for the very first book I picked up when I was 17 years old was Investing for Dummies. It's a great book, right? And then after that in college, I did the Stock Options for Dummies book. And then from there, it's just, I started reading every single book I could get my hands on options and on equity strategy. If someone really likes to understand how the charts work, technical analysis books are a great one. They're a lot of fun. And the nice thing about technical analysis is there's a lot of opinion in it. So how you read a chart versus how someone else might read that same chart, you don't have, it's not an exact science, it's more of an art form. So I think that those are some great places to start. A lot of the libraries, I know my public library has investment sections now as it's becoming more and more popular. And the last thing I'll say is the CNBC has a lot of great resources right on their website as well, so we use them a lot.
Absolutely. You know what I find is so funny? In back in college, I myself read the Investing for Dummies book too.
Yes, it's a great book.
It's a fantastic book,
It's very
especially
easy read.
very easy read before I made my decision to switch from business administration to finance. First book I read myself, so definitely do recommend.
Yeah, no, it's a great book. And then I'm actually reading. My wife always asks me, why are you reading books on stock options that you already know how to do them? Like, it's always good to learn the basics. So, like Pete Najarian and his brother just wrote "It's Not an Option." As soon as I heard about the book, I bought it, and I've been reading. That's the one I'm reading right now. It's a very basic book on stock options, but I like just kind of refreshing on fundamentals all the time. So.
Absolutely. And it's very similar to that. Like with alternative investments, there's so much always happening, but understanding the basics is key. And I know for a fact a lot of people I know personally make fun of me because if I'm at the beach, I am reading something about alternative investments or self-directed IRAs.
Yep, absolutely.
But if you love something, you really just have to be on top of it, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, it's a lot of
Beautiful.
I enjoy it. Like it's fun for me. People always whenever I talk to my friends about what I do, I'm always like, they hear the stuff I'm reading or they look at the stuff I'm reading and I'm like, this is enjoyable for me. I love it. It's not like I'm doing work. I'm having fun.
What is that line? Like, if you actually love what you do, you're never working a day in your life. I feel like that's what we're having right now, and I think that is definitely a blessing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's definitely a good statement.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Corey. This has definitely been a very educational webinar, and I am very excited to hear about the up and coming things at Walker Capital Partners.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much.